Hello, I'm Matt, an investigator involved in not only the Pointing Ninja of Z investigation, which ranged on PlayStation Home from probably long before 2012 up to March 31st of 2015. I'm also, of course, working on the Hundegni YouTube mystery, and that is the primary subject of this video, of course, as we'll be investigating it pretty much from the 2015 time period when it first started out and to the present day, but mainly we're going to be covering the 1.x series. Now, in the past, I've made a multitude of videos on both this channel and on our other channel, which I will link below, related to both of these mysteries, the Pointing Ninja of Z and Hundegni, and how clues were approached, how we solved them, and how stories or relationships have seemingly arisen between them. I'd recommend that if you have not watched my two videos explaining the story and investigation process of the Pointing Ninja mystery, that you check those out prior to viewing this video, as you may be easily confused by some of the references I will make. I'd also encourage you to watch my other brief videos wherein I discuss theories over Hundegni 1.1 to 1.9, because I won't be going as in-depth on every aspect of those videos this time around. Now, with all that being said, today I am going to be going over videos 1.1 through 1.9 of the Hundegni series. I'm going to be giving updates on our findings, and there are quite a few, as well as interpretations myself and others have had in explaining what the Hundegni series is trying to convey. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Hundegni 1.1 was the start of everything, the first video to be put out by the Maine channel. As such, it should not be a great surprise that myself and others have looked it over quite a bit for hidden clues, but the results remain pretty clear, with 1.1 merely containing the Morse code message of, "And now we begin the new." Overall, we see this as little more than an introductory message, something to help get the ball rolling while still connecting itself to the original Z through the logo in the background. We don't believe this message carries as much weight or meaning as others, so for the most part we shall not be going over it again throughout the rest of this video. Hundegni 1.2 features fleeting glimpses at a real-life monarch butterfly, as well as various binary code stills all throughout it. When translated, the results of the phrase "arrow against" can be found. We shall discuss how this ties into other codes later on. Hundegni 1.3 consists of a pulsating series of noises which we had previously not been able to crack. However, with the help from new investigators, we found that if certain pitches are matched with ones and other pitches are matched with zeros, a comprehensive binary code was formed. Once this code was broken, the phrase "can't be" was discovered. Once again, we'll discuss the meaning of this message later on, though we should point out that the series of shrubs seen within this video will make a later appearance in video 1.5. Hundegni 1.4 contains a series of stills, one of which briefly showing the shrubs from the previous video, and another slide showing the same shrubs in a brown, dead, or decaying stage. However, the code in this video can easily be found by scanning the briefly seen QR code still, which becomes the phrase, "He is out there, I see him out there." As with other codes, we will wait until the later portion of this video to elaborate. Hundegni 1.5 takes up a strange tradition among Hundegni videos, wherein the fifth of a series is made unlisted, thereby not appearing to anyone who doesn't have the link to it. This video shows what we believe to be the same location from video 1.3, but now in this older, less lively state, with possibly burnt materials residing in a small clearing. The sounds of an ambulance can also be heard throughout the video, further indicating some sort of fire or accident. And as we will see when I eventually do an overall review of the 2.x series, fire becomes an important component in the mystery as a whole. No codes have been found in this video. Hundegni 1.6 contains audio of various languages, a majority of which we had no clue as to the translations of. However, with some help we discovered the first message was Spanish, and roughly stated the phrase, "only a dream." The second message is French, and roughly translates to, "it is not real." And the third phrase is Chinese for, "it's not my fault." We'll return to these later. Hundegni 1.7 posed perhaps the biggest challenge to us as we attempted to solve each 1.x video. Multiple disjointed stills of a bizarre code made things difficult to read, let alone put together into something coherent. However, after some debate, the frames were put together into an order that, for the time being, we are happy with. Once put together, a base 64 code can be made out of these stills and can be translated to PR2526. Speculation quickly ensued, with the idea arising that this odd result could in fact be a Bible passage, particularly Proverbs 25 and 26, which state, "Like a muddied spring or a polluted well are the righteous who give way to the wicked." It is possible that our jump to this conclusion is incorrect, but until a better explanation can be given, this is the result we are staying with. Hundegni 1.8 was also quite confusing to everyone around the time it came out. However, after a fair amount of research into the audio, it was found that the various clips were all from the same basic sound, which was torn apart and then scrambled. However, once in the proper order, the matching hexadecimal codes with each sound eventually translated into, "The fog is not real. We never lost our way." This process was a pretty big undertaking to figure out, but I couldn't be happier with the results, and I must again thank our investigators for their efforts. Otherwise, I fear this code would have never been broken. Lastly, 1.9. The final video of the series gives us our final clues. Luckily, it would seem as if every code in this video was already solved in our prior overview of it, which garnered the results of close your eyes, close your ears, close your mind. And with that, the 1.x series ends and moves on to 2.x. But it's at this point in the video that I'll bring forth my speculations as well as the speculations of others who have sought to find the meaning behind what 1.x is trying to tell us. Here is a list of all the codes from each of the 1.x videos. As far as we know, this is everything. It's possible, of course, that we've missed a well-hidden code or clue of some sort, but for the most part, I'd say that this is everything we need to begin forming theories. One thing I'll note right off the bat is that the 2.x series is quite different than the 1.x series. 2.x contains digital settings, more direct references to the pointing ninja mystery, and an overall creepier vibe, while 1.x is almost entirely focused on pictures or audio. The basics, if you will. As such, bigger questions such as who made these videos and why exactly they made these videos will likely have to wait until we can decode more of the 2.x series. As for 1.x, you can probably pretty clearly tell by a lot of these codes that the narrator, which is the name I will be addressing Mangled from here on out, is clearly trying to separate himself from the dark reality of his situation. He wants to close his eyes, ears, and mind to what's happening around him, or pretend that it's just a dream. And whenever the narrator does seem to accept that the situation is real, he decides to remove himself from any sort of blame. He says things like, "The fog is not real, we never lost our way," or "It's not my fault, can't be." Above all else, it would appear that the narrator does not desire to accept the gravity of his doings. He's hiding from something, desperately trying to convince himself that the wrongs of his past or present aren't occurring. But they are, despite how much he'd like to stay in denial over them. Going a step further, the fog and the muddied spring or polluted well can roughly mean the same thing. Both the code and the Bible verse are likely related to the idea that when good people give up their morals, beliefs, or principles and submit to the wicked, they themselves become a source for that wickedness, spreading it even farther or more feverishly, becoming something that they never wanted to become. Despite what the narrator wants to believe, this fog or muddied spring is, once again, I shall say, very much real. Now we move on to the questionable codes that are honestly very difficult to pin down. The phrase, "he is out there, I see him out there," somewhat indicates an almost hallucinatory state to me. It's as if the narrator is seeing a ghost of some sort or a monster and is trying to tell us what he sees despite our neglect of it. As for who this him could be, we really aren't sure. Brett, the suited man, these individuals could have an equally haunting presence towards the narrator, as Brett died in a natural and likely unnecessary death, while the suited man severely hindered the freedoms of his shadows, limiting their abilities to express themselves and act as individuals. Or perhaps this him is someone else entirely. We really can't be certain. The term arrow against is likely referring to the shadows from the pointing ninja investigation. Shadows were the pawns of the suited man, those whose freedoms were somehow taken away or suppressed. Calling a shadow an arrow seems like a fitting choice, as the organization behind the pointing ninja mystery was indeed arrows of heaven, plural. But this arrow, or shadow, that is posting the Hundegni videos has now turned against either the suited man or the subjugation of his past, and is now, in some way at least, possibly fighting for freedom. And now we are left with 1.5. I do not believe it's any coincidence that we had to wait until the 2.x series had began before we got this video's URL. The narrator, I believe, wanted us to see that 1.5 is directly related to the 2.x series, as it indicates the early themes of fire, pain, death, etc., both through audio in the emergency sirens and the imagery of the once lush and green flora, now brown and deteriorating with burnt materials sitting nearby. It somewhat mirrors the Proverbs passage from before of something good and full of life being polluted or soured. And as we see throughout 2.x, it's only getting worse. If you want a single sentence explaining all of this, I struggle to give you one. For it does not seem my place to say that the narrator is, say, paranoid, guilty, or disturbed, or anything so simple. All I can say is that I believe the narrator witnessed, experienced, or perhaps indirectly caused something terrible to happen to another individual, and is now seeking to explain himself to the world, to perhaps take the weight off his mind. It all comes back to the name, man-gled, mangled, something torn apart, mutilated, and agitated. As far as we know, Brett, before the creation of Arrows of Heaven, before the entire mystery began, was killed in a car accident. The additional fact that Hundegni has uploaded on March 27th, around the time that we suspected Brett had passed, long before that Hundegni upload was posted, would suggest that Brett's death is indeed on the narrator's mind. Could this dark phrase of mangled be referencing that loss of life, or is there something more? What's the meaning of the burnt materials and later fiery imagery of 2.x? Those are some things to keep in mind as we continue to decode the 2.x videos and await the suspected rise of the 3.x series. And so, with all this being said, that brings us to the end of this 1.x overview video. I hope you enjoyed and have a better understanding of where we believe this series is going, but most of all, I just hope that I haven't forgotten to mention something really important. And if anything does come up, I will put annotations in this video or updates in the description. Speaking of the description, I'll be linking to each of the original Hundegni videos, our original review channel, as well as our new Discord chat, where we've had the pleasure of discussing all of this information and more. If you're interested in joining our investigation with your own findings, theories, or even just opinions, we'd love to have you. Thanks for watching. Matt